Hey guys, what's up? Well, I got some time here. I'll probably be pausing this a lot while I do this, but I've got some time here, so I thought I'd just kind of read off the college bowl games for this year. I wanted to do this yesterday after I printed them out, but I had to get ready for work, just like I'm getting ready to do now. So I figured I'd try to get some of this done before at least 6:12, 6:10, or something like that. Just kind of read off who's in the bowl games so you guys have an idea of, who's competing and where. I know some of you may or may not be interested in that, but just thought I'd have a little fun here. The interesting fact is, from what people are saying, this is actually the first time, or the most legitimate first time, actually, that some 6-win teams, 6 wins basically meaning you're bowl eligible, this will be the first time that some of them legitimately will not get into a bowl, because it looks like they may have cut down on some of the bowls a little bit. I'm not really sure. So, yeah, apparently if your team or your school got 6 wins this year in FBS play, they didn't get invited, well, there's your answer. They're one of the schools that got left out. So, anyway, on to the topic at hand. What we do have is these games, so I'm going to read them off. We have about 1, 2, 3. We have about 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold on. 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have, according to 6 bowl games on the 15th, which is a week from this Saturday. We have legitimately, we legitimately have 6 bowl games to kick off the season. Now, what I find funny is this is not the first time, actually, they've done this. They've done this, of course, in the past, but it seems recently a lot of the bowl season starts now on a Saturday. There used to be a time where only 1 or 2 bowl games started the bowl game season, or the college bowl game season, and they would start in the middle of the week, or on a Friday, or whatever. Now it's like, hey, we're going to kick it off. We're going to kick it off on the traditional Saturday for college football. So, anyway, here are the bowl games, those 6 bowl games that will be kicking off the season. First, we have the Celebration Bowl. The Celebration Bowl was, it used to be known as something else. I can't remember the name. But one of the traditions was it would be Grambling State versus Southern, or something like that. So I do apologize if I can't remember the name. I do apologize about that. But the game this year is going to be the Celebration Bowl, that is, the Celebration Bowl. It's going to be North Carolina A&T versus Alcorn State. Yeah, Alcorn State versus North Carolina A&T. And that's Alcorn State, Alcorn State versus North Carolina A&T. And that'll be the bowl game that kicks off the bowl season. And that's between, of course, 2 traditional FCS schools. As you know, that's actually between 2 FCS schools. I think one's from the SWAC and the MEAC, I believe. So yeah, those 2 teams are going to be facing in the Celebration Bowl, which is pretty cool. And And I'm gonna say this. It's nice that I think it's nice that the NCAA allows, the FCS to have one legitimate, and I'm not saying this to be offensive, but one legitimate college bowl game during the regular FBS bowl season, especially for the SWAC and the MEAC. It shows a lot of integrity and respect on their part, so I really appreciate that. And I say that with all respect, all the must-do respect. I say that with all the respect in the world, no offense or anything. I think it's great that the NCAA allows that to happen, and I hope they continue to do that and open the door for other bowl games like it to come down the pipes eventually. All right, the game that follows that, now that game is going to be at 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 p.m. Eastern, but mostly 9 a.m. Pacific, and I will be going by Pacific time here. So it'll be at 9 a.m. Pacific on ABC. It'll be from Atlanta. The game that follows 2 hours later on ESPN will be the New Mexico Bowl. That will be at 2 p.m. Eastern, which make it 11 a.m. Pacific. So it'll be around 11 a.m. Pacific. It'll be the New Mexico Bowl from Albuquerque, New Mexico. It'll be Utah State versus North Texas. So yeah, Utah State who had a decent year this year, and for a while seemed it could contend to be one of those mid-major schools that could break the mold. At least they ended the season on a positive note and they got into a bowl game. It may have not been what they wanted, but at least they got into one. And that's saying something. That's saying something. The next one that starts a half hour after that on CBS Sports Network at 11:30 a.m. is the Cure Bowl. The Cure Bowl, C-U-R-E, the Cure Bowl. It will be from Camping World Stadium in Orlando, Florida at 11:30 a.m. Pacific on CBS Sports Network. It'll be Tulane versus Louisiana. So yeah, CBS Sports Network is, if you haven't noticed, been getting into the bowl action as well, and has been getting the exclusive rights. Well, I wouldn't say exclusive rights. I'm checking my laundry here. Like I said, I wouldn't say exclusive rights, but I would basically say they're kind of throwing their name into the college bowl mania bowl month hat or rink, if you will, and they are drawing certain bowl, or at least, like I said, acquiring the rights to certain bowl games to broadcast. So yeah, CBS Sports Network on December 15th at 11:30 a.m. is going to have the Cure Bowl between Tulane and Louisiana, and that's, like I said, 11:30 a.m. Pacific from Orlando, Florida, and Camping World Stadium. Then next up, we have the Las Vegas Bowl. Now, this is what many would consider kind of a mixture, because usually in the past, traditionally, and I say this with all due respect, games that like the Las Vegas Bowl would be more towards Christmas. And if they weren't, they were mostly used as one of the opening bowl games that would have the smaller FBS schools, like a MAC team or a Sun Belt team or whatever. Well, the NCAA basically said, look, we're not going to do that anymore. We're going to put all the schools, despite how big they are, on equal footing. And I guess they decided long ago that the Las Vegas Bowl would be between teams of the Pac-12 and the Mountain West Conference. So the Las Vegas Bowl will have Arizona State versus Fresno State, who are the Midwest, or not Midwest, but the Mountain West champions. Yeah, Las Vegas Bowl is actually the bowl game where the Mountain West champions go. So And what is it? Fresno State, what, 10-2, 11-2, or something like that? So yeah, at 12:30 p.m. Pacific on ABC on the 15th, a week from Saturday, will be Arizona State versus Fresno State from Las Vegas in the Las Vegas Bowl. So that'll be kind of interesting to see and see where they go from there. Yeah. Check the time here. Yeah, I gotta get in the shower in a bit. And I will be right back. Hold on. Hey guys, I'm back. I just got out of the shower, but like I was saying, the Las Vegas Bowl, which formerly, a long time ago, was known as the California Bowl, and it would be held at Fresno State, is now basically the Las Vegas Bowl. Used to be for the smaller tier FBS schools, like I said, the MAC, the WAC. Well, the WAC, of course, is no more, except for, well, at least in football, the WAC is still existing in other college sports and everything. But in football, mostly it's no longer around unless they decide to change things up again. But yeah, mostly it was about the WAC meeting the Mountain West because, they needed a bowl game there. Because, not the fact that they needed a bowl game, but basically it was carrying on the tradition of a WAC school facing either a Mountain West or a MAC school. So yeah, that's why it was, that's why Las Vegas used to be, as I say this with all due respect, originally a bowl game for the smaller tiers, but now you have the Mountain West, and which has kind of gone from a small tier to a mid-major school, competing with basically one of the big powerhouse schools in Pac-12, or big powerhouse conferences, I should say, in the Pac-12. And in this case, you got a very interesting matchup in Arizona State and Fresno State from Las Vegas. So that's going to be interesting. And that takes place, what's the time again? Here we go. That takes place, like I said, on the 15th at 12:30 p.m. Pacific time on ABC. Now, the next bowl that takes place that day is the Camellia Bowl. The Camellia Bowl. Basically, the Camellia Bowl. It's going to be in Montgomery, Alabama. It's going to take place at 2:30 p.m. Pacific time on ESPN. It will be Georgia Southern versus Eastern Michigan. So the Camellia Bowl will be Georgia Southern versus Eastern Michigan, basically Sun Belt versus MAC, and it won't be the only Sun Belt MAC game that day. But yeah, that's another one of the bowl games kicking off the bowl season a week from Saturday. So that might be interesting. Georgia Southern, I will admit that since they came into the FBS, has kind of been one of those smaller to mid-tier power schools that once they get on a roll, once they get some momentum and get on a roll, people will take notice and people will be like, yeah, this is a good team, this is a good school, we should be paying more attention to it. All right. So after that, at 6 p.m. Pacific, following that, because like I said, because this one is at 2:30 p.m. Pacific, that being the Camellia Bowl. At 6 p.m. Pacific is the New Orleans Bowl, and it will be Conference USA's Middle Tennessee State, or MTSU, versus Appalachian State. Appalachian State, of course, known for upsetting Michigan at the Big House several years ago when it was still an FCS school. Now is in a bowl game for, I think, the third year in a row or something like that. Third or fourth year in a row. Mostly, I think, third year or something like that since they've been part of the FBS. And one of the things that happens when you're part of the FBS is in your inaugural year, even if you have a winning record, you can't compete in a bowl game, but that does help you get momentum to go into the next season to try to win a bowl game as well once you finally become eligible. So yeah, Appalachian State and Middle Tennessee State will meet in the New Orleans Bowl to wrap up the first day of bowl games of the College Bowl season a week from Saturday at 6 p.m. Pacific on ESPN. Now, 3 days later, on December 18th, because the 16th is Sunday, that's NFL football. The 17th is Monday Night Football, so that's NFL still. But on Tuesday, 2 weeks from today, 2 weeks from today, you will have the Boca Raton, easy for me to say, or anybody to say, the Boca Raton, that's BOCARATON, that's BOCA space RATON, bowl. It'll be Northern Illinois versus UAB, or Alabama Birmingham. And Alabama Birmingham, even though this is not a big bowl for them, that's quite a story to be back in a bowl game. I think, second year in a row or something, ever since they reinstated the football program. Because originally UAB, I guess because of funding or something, didn't want to have their football program anymore, or couldn't afford the football program. And that got a lot of backlash, not just from the UAB students and alumni and all that, but from everybody. So yeah, UAB reinstated it, and ever since they reinstated it, it's been back kind of on the winning tracks ever since then. So yeah, the Boca, I'm just going to call it the Boca Bowl, will have Northern Illinois and UAB. In Northern Illinois, kind of surprised in the past several years. You know, it doesn't feel like it was that long ago. They were one of those mid-tier schools, mid-major schools, or small major schools, whatever you want to call them, that broke the barrier and got into a New Year's Day 6 game. So, I'm not saying it's kind of, disappointing of how far they've fallen, but you never know. They might be back in the hunt very soon. I think every year they get into a bowl game, either the bowl game they want, or they're just going to be satisfied with. It's just more momentum for them going into the bowls, going into the next year to compete for a bowl game. To try to break that barrier and say, yeah, we're gonna get into these games whether you guys like it or you don't. So, yeah, that's pretty much what I'm getting here. That's pretty much the feeling I'm getting here. The vibe, I should say, that I'm getting here with Northern Illinois. But yeah, they're going to be in the Boca Bowl versus Alabama Birmingham UAB on December 18th, 2 weeks from now, at 4 p.m. Pacific on ESPN. Then the next day we have the Frisco Bowl. And I look at this name, I'm thinking, Frisco? Shouldn't this be in California maybe? Maybe Levi Stadium? Maybe? I don't know. Just saying, But anyway, the Frisco Bowl will be in Frisco, Texas at Toyota Stadium. It'll be at 5 p.m. Pacific on ESPN on December 19th, a week from tomorrow, 2 weeks from tomorrow. 2 weeks from tomorrow, that is, December 19th, which is a Wednesday. It'll be San Diego State versus Ohio. So you got Mountain West versus MAC. So you got Ohio U versus San Diego State, which was being praised as one of the more surprising teams out of not just the Mountain West, but out of the mid-major conferences, as being a team that potentially could break the mold down the line. So that's kind of cool. It's kind of interesting to see that, they did get into a bowl game and all that, but it may not have been the bowl they wanted, but, they're going to one. And then, like I said, that's 2 weeks from tomorrow. 2 weeks from tomorrow, that will be in Frisco, Texas, at 5 p.m. Pacific time on ESPN from Toyota Stadium. It's the Frisco Bowl, San Diego State versus Ohio. Then the next day, on December 20th, we have, I can't believe the name of this, the Gas Parlor Bowl, or the Gas Parlor Bowl, whatever it's called. I call it the Big Bad Mowers Bowl, because that's the sponsor. The Big Bad Mowers Bowl, the Big Bad Mowers Bowl, which will be at 5 p.m. Pacific time on ESPN from Tampa Bay, Florida, Raymond James Stadium. It'll be Marshall versus South Florida. So I think Marshall, who is, American Conference or Conference USA, I have to look. No, the Conference USA will go up against the American Conference Southern Florida Bulls, or USF, from Tampa Bay, Raymond James Stadium, essentially making this a USF home game, because I think USF at times plays the home games from Tampa Bay. So yeah, Marshall basically is going to be the visitor going up against the home team in Southern Florida in the Big Bad Mowers Bowl, or the Gasparille Bowl, on 2 weeks from Thursday on December 20th at 5 p.m. Pacific on ESPN from Raymond James Stadium. And then, after that, the next day on December 21st, which is a Friday, it is true, it's a Friday, at 9:30 a.m. Pacific, we will have the Bahamas Bowl, Florida International, FIU, versus Toledo. So yeah, you got a MAC versus Conference USA matchup here. FIU versus Toledo in the Bahamas Bowl at 9:30 a.m. on Friday, December 21st. Now, December 21st is basically going to be the start of what is considered bowl mania, in a sense, college bowl mania, college bowl week, in the eyes of a lot of folks, because this is when you're going to start getting multiple bowl games in one day, and sometimes it won't even be a Saturday. So if you got a DVR them. Or if you got ESPN on your PlayStation 4 or Xbox or wherever, or even on here, try to take time to watch the games, because a lot of us will be working and we won't be watching. Anyway, that game, like I said, the Bahamas Bowl will be at 9:30 a.m. Pacific time. Florida International versus Toledo from the National Stadium in Nassau, Bahamas, on ESPN, and that's on December 21st at 9:30 a.m. Pacific. Then we got the famous Idaho Potato Bowl, originally known as the Humanitarian Bowl. Originally, at one time, many consider ties to the California Bowl. I think I think it was originally the California Bowl, because when the Las Vegas Bowl came to be, California Bowl still had 1 year, and then I guess it was just distributed, parts of it distributed to both bowl games or something. But we have the Idaho Potato Bowl, and that will be at 1 p.m. Pacific on ESPN from Boise, Idaho. It'll be BYU versus Western Michigan. And again, Western Michigan is another one of those schools that once broke the mold, and now they're trying to work their way back up there. It's BYU and Western Michigan in the Idaho Potato Bowl at 1 p.m. Pacific on ESPN 2 weeks from Friday. And then 2 weeks from this Saturday, we get a whole list of bowls. So the first one will be the Birmingham Bowl. That'll be at 9 a.m. Pacific. That's from Birmingham, Alabama. That'll be Wake Forest versus Memphis. Again, that's 9 a.m. Pacific on ESPN from Birmingham, Alabama. Wake Forest versus Memphis. Now you get into some of the big schools. And then following that, we have the Armed Forces Bowl. That'll be Houston versus Army. And that'll be at 12:30 p.m. Pacific from Fort Worth, Texas on ESPN on December 22nd. Again, Saturday. So it'll be Houston versus Army. Make sure I'm kind of up to date on all these things here. So yeah, Houston versus Army in the Armed Forces Bowl. Then next up, we have the Dollar General Bowl, which follows that at 4 p.m. Pacific on ESPN. It'll be from Mobile, Alabama. The Dollar General Bowl will be Troy versus Buffalo. So Troy, I think, who's Sunbelt, will take on a MAC team in Buffalo. And then to close out that day, we have the Hawaii Bowl at 7:30 p.m. Pacific. The Hawaii Bowl, Louisiana Tech versus Hawaii. Yeah, so Hawaii basically gets a home game that day. And that closes out the 22nd day, and that basically closes out the bowl games for December 22nd. And then the day after Christmas, we have the First Responder Bowl. That's going to be at the Cotton Bowl in Dallas, Texas. That will be at, I think, 1:30, 12:30, at 10:30 a.m. Pacific. No, wait a minute, is it? So 9:30, 10:30, 11:30. Yeah, 10:30 a.m. Pacific time on ESPN from the Cotton Bowl. It's the First Responder Bowl. It's Boston College versus Boise State. That's going to be the day after Christmas. And then also that day, the day after Christmas, we will have the Quick Lane Bowl. That will be 5:15, 4:15, 3:15. At 2:15 Pacific time, the Quick Lane Bowl will be Minnesota versus Georgia Tech from Detroit at Ford Field. Taking my time here. I might have to split this into two parts and then do a playlist or something, so I do apologize. Or edit it together later on. Next up, we have the Cheez-It Bowl, which is also on the 26th, and that closes out that day of games. The Cheez-It Bowl from Chase Field in Phoenix, Arizona, it will be TCU and Cal, and that will be at 6 p.m. Pacific time. Then, the next day, we have the Independence Bowl on the 27th, which is, I think, Wednesday. So on Wednesday, December 27th, we have the Independence Bowl, or we have this list of bowl games, I should say. We have the Independence Bowl at 10:30 a.m. Pacific time on ESPN. It will be Temple versus Duke. Then following that, and that's from Independence Stadium in Shreveport, Louisiana. Then following that, from Yankee Stadium in New York, we have the Pinstripe Bowl. It'll be Wisconsin versus Miami. Okay, just taking my time there. Again, maybe to split this into two parts. Then following the Pinstripe Bowl, and oh, by the way, the Pinstripe Bowl will be at about 2:15 p.m. Pacific, like I said, on ESPN from Yankee Stadium. And to close out that day of bowl games, you'll have the Texas Bowl. It'll be Baylor versus Vanderbilt from NRG Stadium in Houston. That's at 6 a.m. Pacific. Not 6 a.m., but 6 p.m. Pacific on ESPN. And that closes out the December 27th day of bowl games. And then on the 28th, we have the Music City Bowl at 10:30 a.m. Pacific. And that will be Purdue versus Auburn in the Music City Bowl. And that's, again, like I said, 10:30 a.m. Pacific from Nashville, Tennessee on the 28th. Then we have the Camping World Bowl following that at 2:15 p.m. Pacific on ESPN. The Camping World Bowl from Orlando, Florida will be Syracuse versus West Virginia. Then following that on CBS Sports Network at 2:30 p.m. Pacific time, it'll be Nevada versus Arkansas State. And then to close out that day of bowl games will be the Alamo Bowl from San Antonio at 6 p.m. Pacific. It'll be Iowa State versus Washington State. All right, I'm going to stop it here and be back in part 2. I got to let this load. Hey guys, I'm back. Yeah, I noticed I'm at my job now. I just didn't get the chance to finish this off. What was I? Oh yeah, I'm at the Peach Bowl right now. This is part of the New Year's Day 6, even though it's taking place. But first of all, the bowl game that I did talk about before I went and got myself ready, before I had to, upload this because I've run out of time. It's the Alamo Bowl that takes place on the 28th at 6 p.m. Pacific time. 6 p.m. Pacific time on ESPN. It's Iowa State and Washington State in the Alamo Bowl. And then the next day is the Peach Bowl, which is the first of the New Year's Day 6 bowls. The Peach Bowl, which takes place at 9 a.m. Pacific on the 29th. It will be Florida versus Michigan, and that is in Atlanta. So that's the Peach Bowl. Put this down for a second. Then following that, following that, I think, around the same time, I believe. Hold on, let me check. Yeah, basically at the same time on ABC, we'll have the Belk Bowl. We'll have the Belk Bowl in Bank of America Stadium in Charlotte, North Carolina. It'll be South Carolina versus Virginia. And then later on that night at 5 p.m., and that too, the Belk Bowl's at 9 a.m. Pacific time. And then later on that night, at 5 p.m. Pacific on ESPN from Hard Rock Stadium in Miami Gardens, Florida, we'll have the first of the national semifinals. It's the Orange Bowl, Alabama versus Oklahoma. That's at 5 p.m. Pacific on ESPN. And then, well, actually before that, I don't know why they got this out of order, but actually before that, at 1 p.m. Pacific time, will be the Cotton Bowl, which is actually the first semifinal game. It's Clemson versus Notre Dame. That's at 1 p.m. Pacific on the 29th from AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas. And then that's followed by the second semifinal game, which is the Orange Bowl at 5 p.m. Pacific from Miami Gardens, Florida, Hard Rock Stadium, Alabama versus Oklahoma. Then on New Year's Eve, we have the Red Box Bowl, which is at 12 p.m. at noon Pacific time. The Red Box Bowl, that'll be on Fox at Levi Stadium. That's the Red Box Bowl on New Year's Eve at noon Pacific. It's Oregon versus Michigan State. Also that day at 9 a.m. Pacific on ESPN, on New Year's Eve, we will have the Military Bowl, Virginia Tech versus Cincinnati. Okay, just trying to get some of this out of the way as quickly as I can. And that's from Indianapolis, Maryland. And then following that at 12:45 Pacific on ESPN will be the Liberty Bowl from Liberty Bowl Memorial Stadium in Memphis, Tennessee. It'll be Missouri versus Oklahoma State, so a matchup of old Big 12 rivals. And then later on after that, on FS1 at 4 p.m., or actually at 4 p.m. Pacific on FS1, will be the Holiday Bowl in San Diego, California at the SDCCU Stadium. It's the Holiday Bowl. It'll be Northwestern versus Utah. That's at 4 p.m. Pacific on FS1. And then half hour after that on ESPN will be the Gator Bowl from TIAA Bankfield in Jacksonville, Florida. It'll be North Carolina State versus Texas A&M. And then the Sun Bowl, which is earlier in the day, earlier before that, at 11 a.m. Pacific, the Sun Bowl will be Pitt versus Stanford in El Paso, Texas at Sun Bowl Stadium. Okay, good time. And then here we go to New Year's Day at 9 a.m. Pacific on New Year's Day from Raymond James Stadium in Tampa on ESPN2 will be the Outback Bowl, which was formerly the Hall of Fame Bowl. It'll be Mississippi State versus Iowa. Then an hour after that at 10 a.m. Pacific on ABC from Camping World Stadium, which is going to basically have its feel of bowl games this year, will be the Citrus Bowl. It'll be Kentucky versus Penn State. And then following that at... Am I reading this right? Oh yeah, I guess I am. Following that at 9 a.m. Pacific will be the Fiesta Bowl. 9 a.m., very early, probably the earliest it's ever been. It will be the Fiesta Bowl, the other New Year's Day 6 bowl game. It'll be LSU versus UCF. That's at 9 a.m. Pacific on ESPN from University of Phoenix Stadium in Glendale, Arizona. And then following that at 1 p.m. Pacific will be the Rose Bowl game, the other New Year's Day 6 game, which will be Washington versus Ohio State from Pasadena. And then to wrap up that day of bowls, we have the Sugar Bowl. The Sugar Bowl, to wrap up the New Year's Day bowl games, we have the Sugar Bowl between, I want to make sure I get all this right, because I want to take this home with me. We have Texas versus Georgia in the Sugar Bowl. That's at 5:45 p.m. from Mercedes-Benz Superdome in New Orleans. And that'll be, like I said, 5:45 p.m. Pacific time on ESPN, the Sugar Bowl between Texas and Georgia. And then at 5 p.m. on January 7th is the College Football National Championship game from Levi Stadium in Santa Clara. And I can tell you this, that's going to make my job a little bit busy when that happens. But yeah, those are basically practically the bowl games listed. So hopefully you guys got that. And probably when I get home tonight from work, because right now I got about 2 minutes before I clock in. Before I get home from work tonight, I'll probably end up editing this together and doing a fast rendering of it. So it's basically going to be probably around the 42, whatever mark it is. But yeah, those are the bowl games, and like I said, it wraps up with the College Football National Championship on January 7th at 5 p.m. Pacific on ESPN from Levi's Stadium in Santa Clara, California, where the winner where it will match up the winner of Alabama, Oklahoma against the winner of Clemson, Notre Dame. And a lot of people are predicting another Alabama-Clemson match. That might happen more than likely, but then again, we might get something different this year, so we'll just have to wait and see. But yeah, that's pretty much all the bowl games and the schedules. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this. Hopefully you took your time in watching it. And once I render it together into one video, hopefully you guys take your time in watching that as well, if you don't watch the two parts here. So let me know what you guys think down below. Comment if you like. Let me know what kind of bowl games you're looking forward to mostly, and maybe if you're attending any of them during the holiday season. And I will talk to y'all later. I got to get into work now and also use the facilities. So peace out. God bless.